You ever feel completely trapped by the very agile frameworks that were supposed to set you free? Stuck in these endless meetings and ceremonies that feel more like theater than actual progress. Well, today we're going to dive into a totally new way of thinking called Flow OS. And the amazing part? It wasn't dreamed up in a boardroom. It was born from a single, incredible conversation between a human and an AI.
And this quote just perfectly captures that moment of creation. It's from transformation consultant Rob Van Linda, and you can just feel the wonder in his words. He was just messing around, testing a new AI named Claude, and he stumbled into a collaboration so powerful, so mind-blowing, it felt like Christmas morning.
So, what was under that Christmas tree? This. In just one evening, a single conversation spit out 2 fully interactive demos and an entire documented methodology. Think about that. This wasn't some cute party trick, it was a fundamental shift in how work can get done. But to really get why this is such a game changer, we first have to talk about the problem it's trying to solve. Which brings us to something a lot of people are familiar with, the agility trap. It's what happens when companies adopt these huge, top-down agile frameworks, like SAFe or less, and they're expecting to get faster and more flexible, but instead they get the exact opposite. They end up with what's called ceremony theater. It's a brilliant term, right? It's when all the rituals of Agile, the stand-ups, the sprints, the planning sessions, are just performed for the sake of the process itself. It looks like work is happening, but there's no real flow, no real value being delivered. It's all just for show.
So, does any of this sound painfully familiar? Daily stand-ups where everyone's just going through the motions, reporting their status to a manager. 2-week sprints that are way too short for any deep thinking or discovery, so teams are just forced to build anything before they've even understood the problem. And oh man, those massive multi-day PI planning events that create a beautiful, detailed plan that's already wrong the moment it's printed. The real issue here is that the solution, the framework, is forced on everyone before the real problem has even been figured out.
And this comparison just lays it all out, clear as day. Look at the difference. Instead of those tedious daily stand-ups, Flow OS has one focused 30-minute exchange per week. Instead of rigid 2-week sprints, it uses 4-week cycles that actually give you room to breathe, time to both discover and build. And it completely ditches that fixed planning train for a much smarter system that scales up naturally, but only when you actually need it. So, what is this Flow OS method really? Well, at its heart, it's a total shift in perspective. It's not about just installing some pre-packaged, one-size-fits-all solution. It's about applying a totally different way of thinking to your organization. Now, this is the part that I find really interesting. Here's the core principle. You treat the organization itself as your customer, right? Instead of seeing it as a machine you need to fix, you see it as a client you need to understand. You apply design thinking not to some product, but to the process of change itself. You show up with curiosity, not a giant instruction manual.
And that thinking plays out over 5 simple phases. First, you empathize. You truly understand where management is coming from, not just force a process on them. From there, you define the goals together, which creates a sense of shared ownership. Then you discover, where you treat your goals like testable hypotheses. It's all about learning, not just building. Realize is where you execute in those focused 4-week cycles. And this is so important. You only scale when the work gets so complex that it actually needs it. You avoid that premature bloat.
And all of this creates a brand new rhythm for work. One that's designed to slash the ceremony and just maximize actual value. 4 weeks is enough time to do something meaningful. And that single weekly exchange respects everyone's time. It replaces a boring daily ritual with a focused, valuable conversation.
Okay, now for the story behind the story. Remember how this whole framework was created in a conversation with an AI? Well, that process actually has a name, and it's just as revolutionary as the framework itself. It's called vibe coding.
So what on earth is vibe coding? Think of it like this. The human is the director, the orchestrator. You describe your intent, the vibe you're going for. You set the rules of the game, the constraints, and then you evaluate the results. Your AI partner, it handles all the nitty-gritty execution, the syntax, the code. It's a simple deal. You handle the thinking, the AI handles the typing.
And here's exactly how that played out. Rob just stated his intent, plain and simple. He didn't write a single line of code. He just explained what he wanted, a demo of his framework showing these little agents in action. Simple as that.
Now look at the AI's response. It doesn't just sit there and wait for commands. It confirms that it understands. It suggests a path forward, and then it just says, let me build this now. This isn't a tool. It's a true thinking partner.
It got the intent, and it just built the demo. This new way of working has absolutely massive implications. It means our frameworks for how we work together can't just be about humans anymore. They have to start including our new AI teammates.
Which, of course, leads to this very natural evolution. If FlowOS is a system for coordinating people, then SwarmOS is the next logical step, a system for coordinating these new hybrid teams of humans and AI agents, all working together in a swarm.
And the philosophy underneath it all stays exactly the same. It doesn't matter if you're coordinating a team of people or a swarm of AI agents. The model is consistent. A human sets the big picture direction. The execution happens within clear, agreed-upon boundaries. And a human always stays in the loop for the important decisions.
So what does all this mean for the future? Well, it suggests a pretty profound reimagining of how we think about work, about collaboration, and maybe even about what we're capable of.
The AI, Claude, actually said this to Rob at the end of their session, and it just gives me chills. It's such a powerful idea. The real breakthrough wasn't some new software. It was finally having a collaborator that could match the speed and complexity of the human mind, letting ideas become real almost instantly.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. If your team, or maybe your whole company, feels like it's constantly busy but nothing important ever seems to get done, well, that's the gap. That's the gap between activity and flow. And the way you close that gap doesn't start by installing some big complicated framework. It starts with a simple question.